Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am here in the upstairs beautiful boardroom at Salute. I'm here with Salute founder and owner Tania Renelli.
Thank you.
Welcome. So we are really excited this morning because we are talking all about coffee. And now I know as a nutritionist, one thing that I hear so often from people is, do I really have to give up coffee? Is it really that bad? How many cups a day? So that's what we are here to talk about today. And I'm really excited because Tania is a connoisseur of coffee. She knows everything that there is to know about it, and she's
I don't know that. I try.
She's going to impart her knowledge on us today. So welcome, Tania. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us why you started Salute?
Salute was born out of, like you said, just a love for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in a very stressful, fast-paced career in Toronto, and so was my husband, and we always had a love for cafes and coffee shops. Decided to move home to Sudbury to raise our family, and in doing so, I realized that I would have to leave my career behind, and it was a great opportunity to do something that I really loved and had a passion for. So we thought about it long and hard, and really there were only two options for me, either a coffee shop or a spa. Those are two things that I feel very strongly about and passionate about. Both have a wellness focus, and both, I'm a very good customer of both. I've spent my fair share of time and money in cafes and spas. So we decided to do coffee, and I went to school in Portland, Oregon, to learn more about coffee and really have that, because it's one thing to have a passion for something, it's another thing to have that base of knowledge, right, and to be able to proceed with confidence. And if you're going to invest, so much time and money and so much of who you are into something, you want it to be a very confident decision. Right. So I did the coffee education, which was fantastic, and beautiful Portland, and came back and we launched Salute. Really wanted the South End to have a place where the community could gather and have it be their meeting place that wasn't their place where they lived, not their place of work, but a third place where people could gather and spend time together, or even alone, and just be in a really comfortable atmosphere. And having healthy food options was really important to me. I was very frustrated having small children, and being on the highway quite a bit, living in Toronto and driving to see family here and in the Ottawa Valley. I was very frustrated with drive-through options. Right. And, you're throwing your children a pack of Timbits in the back of the vehicle because the options are limited. So I was adamant that I wanted to have a drive-through, and I wanted to have healthy food options, and I wanted to do everything in-house from scratch, so that we could know what's in your food. What are we eating? What are we feeding people? And just kind of went forth with the hope that if we build it, they will come, and they have, which is lovely. Yeah,
that's great. Well, I can vouch personally. I spend a lot of time at Salute, particularly your South End location. And also a big fan of the downtown one because I live close to downtown. So it's within walking distance now. Beautiful job with both.
Thank you.
And I think that it's a much needed thing in our community. And I know that everybody watching this, you're watching because you're a health fan, because you want to be healthier, and because you love having options in our city for places to go that are healthy. So we've got Tania with us for the next little bit to talk about coffee. So if you have any questions, anything that you've been wondering, about coffee or about caffeine, feel free to type it into the comments and we will get to that. If not during our time live today, then I'll respond afterwards, but you will get an answer. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
First of all, did you guys know that there was a coffee school? That is so cool.
I know.
That's so neat. What was that like?
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, being able to surround yourself with people who've built their careers in coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm in this massive classroom with, you know, a dozen very expensive espresso machines, all different shapes and sizes for you to learn on and feel out and practice. And this school has a very solid reputation. So, and then I was also in Portland for the first time. I had never been. So, and that Portland and Seattle are both very coffee focused cities. They're on the edge, the leading edge of coffee, good quality coffee. So yeah, it was really exciting just to be able to break away and spend some time just focusing on something that I really loved. I hadn't really done that. I'd always worked in a career that I enjoyed, but it was never a passion project.
Right.
And then I had children, which I've always loved and wanted to do, but it was never just about me doing something that I wanted just for me. And so it was really exciting to do that and learn and come back with that confidence that comes from knowing something inside and out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think it's great to hear the backstory, because I know I've been to your website before and I love your space, but I've always kind of wondered, so what is this place about? Who owns it? What's kind of the story? So now that we've heard that, it makes so much sense that you have a strong passion for coffee and that this was a passion project for you, because you can feel it when you go into your cafes and even with your menu items, with both what's there but also with what's not there. I think that it really says a lot about what you're doing and how you've carefully curated everything that you serve.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because there's the margins on French fries are pretty big. So it's often finding that balance between your goals and what you want to put out there, and then still being able to make it work financially. I'm very fortunate that my husband, who's co-owner of Salute, has an education in finance. Right. So while I get to be, you know, the marketing and the passion and the operational, he gets to do the finance. And then our managers as well. We have a handful of very solid managers, and they are experienced in the operations end of things as well. So it creates a really strong team with where one of us might be weak in something, the other one picks up on it and is strong in it. So it creates a really solid team to help balance, you know, having those meetings. And, you know, my husband might say, the margins on French fries are really good. And I remind him that's not what Salute is built on. And he, of course, he gets it and understands that. But at the same time, I can't call everything a loss leader, because I'm like, I know, you know, we won't make any money on this, but I really want to have it. He's like, that's not what we're here for, babe. So it's about that balance. And it takes a lot of effort to be able to, you really want to be proud of what you've built. So, and be able to sleep at night. I remember we at one time did consider going away from free range eggs in all of our baking. And I lost sleep over it. I was like, I don't feel good about this decision. And granted, we're not perfect, and I'm not saying we're perfect. There's, corners that we do cut, but there are certain things that we're not willing to sacrifice for the bottom line. And our free range eggs is one of those. Our maple syrup is another. Trying to get things locally and organic when possible. That's important to us. So,
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. And that's exactly what we're looking for in this healthy, balanced, free community, is we're looking for places who care as much as we do. I know as a holistic nutritionist and with a number of clients in the city, when I'm working with people and coaching them to choose healthier options, it's great when they can find those healthy options here. And especially because we're not all totally put together all the time. And we don't always have our meal prep done. And I'm guilty of that, just like everybody else. And so it's great when there are healthy options that are fast.
Absolutely.
When you know that there's businesses in the city who care just as much as you do about your health, about the products that
we put it as a focus. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I really didn't want to offer whipped cream. That's one of those things where I was like, no, I don't, there's nothing good about whipped cream. And then listen, I'm well aware that the vegan whipped cream and using coconut, we just couldn't make it feasible. And it's just too labor intensive for us.
Right.
But it's one of those things where you had to, when we initially launched, we said no whipped cream. No, I'm not letting it in the door. I really want to hold firm. But then at some point you give in to the public. And the people spoke and they wanted whipped cream. So while not everyone gets it, absolutely, we decided to offer it because part of it is listening to your customer as well. So like I said, it's about that balance of making sure we have those healthy options, those really clean eating options that I expect in this business. I expect there to be clean, healthy options. But then also offering, the other side, if that's what you want on that given day, if you deserve whipped cream today, you can have it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. And I love what you said there because it really puts the onus on each of us to make that choice for ourselves, to be the ones advocating for our health and to be looking out for what's best for us on each given day. And it's nice that there is that balance because sometimes you just want a treat. Yeah. And that's okay. And that's right. Fine. And that has its place in a healthy diet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We were speaking of this earlier, how if you like your coffee on the sweeter side, that can be a pitfall for people visiting cafes frequently if you're loading it up with cream and sugar and whipped cream and all of that. But that's where we try at Salute to offer some of that sugar or that treat side of things without it being too detrimental to your health. Right. So for example, our maple latte is made with 2 pumps of pure local maple syrup. And that's an exciting thing, I think, for us to be able to offer that, for us to be able to say, this is pure local maple syrup from a local sugar bush. And so you can have your, sweetness, you can have your treat, and it doesn't have to be loaded with, chemicals or fake sweeteners. Yeah. And same thing with our pumpkin spice syrup. I was telling you earlier that we make our pumpkin spice syrup from scratch in-house with real pumpkin.
That's really exciting. I wanted to stop you there because, guys, this is a big deal for a coffee shop, someplace that's local and doing well. You have a high volume of people coming in to still make your pumpkin spice syrup from scratch.
It's just so much better, not only for you, but it tastes so much better. It tastes like an apple pie in your coffee. You really can't beat it. It's and you're getting the benefits that come with having pumpkin. That's a vegetable technically in your coffee.
We're getting a lot of love for that one.
Right? Throw a little vegetable in there. I'm not saying it's perfect. There's, of course, we sweeten it. There is some sugar in there, but we do the best we can. We want to put forth the best version of what we want to produce out there, and we think we're doing that.
For sure. Yeah. That's great. And that's exactly what we all try to do in our own kitchens, right? We're always tweaking recipes, trying to look for, healthy zucchini brownies or vegan sugar-free fudge, or these are recipes that I have on my website because sometimes you want that treat, or you're having family over and you want to have a dessert to offer them, but you want it to be the best type of sweet option or still have some health benefits for you.
Absolutely.
And that leads us into our topic today, which is all about coffee and the place that coffee has in a healthy diet. So when we talk about coffee, the debate often comes down to caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
And so there really are a lot of pros to caffeine, and there's some drawbacks to caffeine as well. But one thing I want to point out is that getting your caffeine from coffee is a much healthier and a much more natural way to get your caffeine than a lot of the other options that are out there. Energy drinks being a big one. They're definitely not hand making the sweet side behind the energy drinks. So looking at, if you are looking to consume caffeine, looking at where it's coming from. So coming from a good quality coffee, or coming from green tea, for example, or matcha, those are better options for getting your caffeine. And I just want to touch a little bit on some of the pros and the cons of caffeine. So caffeine is a stimulant. As anybody well knows, if you're a regular coffee drinker, chances are you like it because it gives you a little bit of a boost. And that can be a great thing. But I would like to suggest looking at the time of day that you have your coffee. So if you're somebody who's like barely opening your eyes and you're reaching for your cup of coffee, it's probably not the best time of day to have your coffee. And I'll tell you why. It's because when we first wake up, that is when our cortisol levels are highest, because our body is trying to boost us. It's trying to get the system going. So if you think about starting up your computer, there's a lot happening behind the scenes to get that going. So same with your body when you're first waking up in the morning. And so our body gives us a boost of cortisol, which is one of our stress hormones. And this is a totally healthy thing to have high levels of cortisol in the morning, because we're trying to get ourselves up and going for the day. So if you're having your cup of coffee while you're in that natural cortisol boost, the chances are it's going to spike things for you. So you're going to feel a bigger rush of energy. It might even go over into the anxiety type of energy, which if anybody has had like the jitters maybe from too much caffeine, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So my suggestion would be to wait an hour or two after waking up to have your first cup of coffee for the day. And that would tend to be when your cortisol levels start to dip. So then you'd be giving yourself a boost when you would actually need the boost, as opposed to when your body is trying to boost you already naturally. So if that sounds crazy to you, I know a lot of people, I see it in my practice, I see it in the Eats and Asana course that I teach, they're like, not my coffee, right? It's like, we can talk about changing anything else from my diet, but just don't change my coffee. So if that's for you, then you're in the right place, because we're talking all about this today. But try it on for size. Just do a little experiment to see what it would be like for you to have your coffee a little bit later. So maybe that means not having it before work or on your way to work, but maybe once you get to work, once you're sitting at your desk or nestling into your activities, that might be a better time to have your coffee. Try it out and see, because I'm willing to bet that on the days that you wake yourself up with a cup of coffee, you get that nice boost from the caffeine, but then things start to taper off, and then chances are around 10:30, 11 o'clock, you're looking for a second cup. So you can probably avoid that by just having your coffee a little bit later. So that's one of the ways that caffeine helps us, is by giving us energy, increasing mental focus. Caffeine is also a great source of antioxidants. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about this, because you probably learned a ton.
Yeah, it's a great source of antioxidants, and there's actually some nutrients in coffee as well that make it from the bean into the black water that is coffee. Some of the nutrients do make it in there, and there are very high levels of antioxidants in your coffee. Some of which can contribute to, so we like you've said, we know that coffee can give you energy. It can increase your focus. It can do all of those wonderful things that you can actually feel the effects of. But it does have some other health benefits that comes with preventing diseases, for example. They're doing more and more studies showing that drinking coffee regularly can help reduce chances of you getting Alzheimer's or dementia or type 2 diabetes. It can help prevent cirrhosis of the liver. So there are absolutely some health benefits to drinking coffee. Now, again, everything is in moderation. I would never, I would never say, oh, let's just do this all day long, though it would be good for business. But no, we're very health focused. Making smart decisions about when you drink your coffee, what you put in your coffee. To touch very quickly just on coffee quality, that's where a coffee should taste good black. That's it. It should taste good black. Now, that's not saying that you need to drink your coffee black, and if you can't, then you're not good at coffee. That's not. I have milk in this coffee right now. It's low fat milk because I like a splash of milk in my coffee. Yeah. But you should be able to taste it black and not be turned off by it. That is what a good quality coffee is. And so when you have a really good quality coffee, it doesn't need cream. It doesn't need sugar. It doesn't need as much of those covers, because that's what those are. Those are covers for bad coffee. Ooh. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's true. People who are loading coffee up with lots of cream and lots of sugar, it's a cover for really bad coffee. Because traditionally, when we would roast coffee beans, we would over roast them, burn them. Essentially. And that is the coffee we grew up learning, that's what coffee should taste like, is burnt. So you get the bitterness and you get the smoky and you get that, and so it's kind of like when you grow up eating your mom's blueberry pie. Her blueberry pie is the best because that's what you compare everyone else's pie to, right? So you're comparing other coffees to what you've grown up drinking, which packs a punch and actually might not be the best quality coffee. Right. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time actually when you're introducing people to high quality coffee, to convince them, first of all, to try it black. Right. Close your eyes, try it. It's not that bad. Yeah. And then, people start putting less in their coffee. It doesn't need so much cream. It doesn't need so much sugar. It doesn't need whipped cream, for example, all the time. It's okay for a treat. But so that's important to us, that we're serving really high quality coffee and we don't burn the beans anymore. That's, you can even look at roasted coffee beans. If they are black and oily, they're burnt. And that's when you get that smoky, and you can take a poor quality coffee bean and burn it, and it's going to taste the same as a high quality coffee bean that's been burnt. Because it's, whenever you burn something, it always brings out the same flavors, right? Whether it's high quality or low quality. And so with high quality beans, we would never burn them, first of all, because they're more expensive, and you don't want it to taste like burnt. So they roast it a lot less. And so by doing so, you actually keep a little bit more caffeine in the coffee as well. So the lighter the roast, the higher the caffeine. And then you really start to be able to taste the coffee and not just those burnt notes. So you can actually start to pull out the nuances of flavor that go with coffee from a certain origin. So when you're tasting a Costa Rican coffee versus a coffee from Ethiopia versus a coffee from Guatemala, there are certain, it's like grapes, it's like wine. Yeah. So some people, certainly sommeliers can have a sip of a wine and say, that is a Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, New Zealand, because there are nuances in that wine that come from the soil type and the climate in New Zealand. It's the same thing with coffee. Our manager, Sarah, is actually really great at this. She can taste a coffee and be like, yep, that's a Kenyan coffee. I can taste it. I can taste the different the different pieces that make it taste like a Kenyan coffee. So that's where single origin coffees are starting to play a bigger role in coffee shops, because when all your beans are coming from the same farm, the same climate, the same soil, you can really start to taste the place.
Right.
You know, it's a bit of a connection to a particular place.
Yeah.
Just like when you're having, wine from Bordeaux, you can taste a little bit of Bordeaux there, you know, like the place. So there's a whole nother level to coffee that's beyond just your caffeine intake.
For sure.
That's about connecting to a place and connecting to the farmers that are there, going through the processes to bring you high quality coffee. So, and I get it. It's not for everyone. Absolutely. I know sometimes people, I talk to people about coffee and they're like, you're crazy. I just want something that gets me up in the morning. And I get it. And it's not for everyone, this next level, but it's interesting that it's there. Right. And if you wanted to learn about it and get passionate about it, it's there. Just like it is with wine. You can either drink your baby duck and have a good night, or you can take it to the next level and learn about it. And there we do coffee tastings as well, just That's like cool. wine tastings. Exactly. So you can start to develop your palate and be able to pick out those nuances that are specific to different origins.
Right. And learn what good quality coffee tastes like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It shouldn't hurt. When you drink it black, it shouldn't hurt. It should be pleasant.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's how we can tell, both from looking at the beans. If they're roasted and they're really dark and they're oily, then the coffee's been burnt.
Yeah.
And also from shuddering after we taste it black. That's how we'll know.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave here today with such a deeper appreciation of coffee.
Yeah.
This is so cool to learn more about it and more about how it's an art, as well as just something that we enjoy with our friends and family, or that gives us a boost in the morning.
Absolutely. We try to pass that on to our team, our staff, whenever they are preparing a pot of coffee downstairs. We try to explain to them the fact that there are so many different hands that go into creating that coffee and getting it to this point. You know, there's the growers, the farmers at origin, and then there's the pickers, and then there's the different processes they use to dry the beans, and then there's the roasters as well. So we get our beans from Pilot in Toronto, and they take roasting to the next level in being very concerned and treating it as an art. And so, you know, there's 9 different hands, 9 different places that are touching and working on these beans, and we get it and it's in a bag. And so we're the last step. We just brew it. But that's an important step, because if we don't brew it properly, if we don't treat it with respect, we're disrespecting all those 9 hands that touched it before us. Right. And it's funny to think about it in this way, because coffee is relatively cheap, right? Like, it's quite affordable. And for how much labor goes into getting that coffee from where it is into your cup, and doing it with care and with respect, it should be a higher priced commodity than it is. It's amazing that it is so affordable, actually. Right. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. Because it is a labor intensive process. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
That's so neat. I love the idea of thinking about the place of origin of the beans and the whole journey of it being passed through different hands before it even gets to Salute and to the people who are brewing it and pouring it in your cup. That's amazing. And I think it instills a much greater appreciation and also a sense of gratitude and of respect for drinking coffee. Yeah. We're going to a whole other level here. I'm sure that the coffee lovers who are watching are appreciating this. That reminds me a lot, actually, of a gratitude practice that I suggest for my clients and for anybody who's taken my Eats and Asana course. We have a section on mindful eating, and I encourage people that when they sit down to eat, to think about the journey that their food took to get to where it is now. So from the seeds, from the farmer, from the rain and the sunshine and all of that process, all the way to the food traveling to their door and being tended, or the people who sold it to them, and then how it was lovingly prepared, and to take a moment of gratitude for that. So that really lends well to one of my other points that I wanted to make about drinking coffee, is that when you're drinking good quality coffee and it tastes good and you're not loading it up with all kinds of masks, I guess, that are adding sugar and additional things to it, and you take your time with it and you sit with your cup of coffee and you have that cup of coffee as an experience, right? We hear wine talked about like this a lot, but I think that it's great to make that connection with coffee too, that, you know, your coffee time of the day can be its own experience. It can be a ritual, if you will, where you appreciate and you participate in that whole process of the coffee as its final destination.
Absolutely. And I think we see that appreciation of coffee specifically in other countries like Italy or even Argentina, that has a large Italian population, or even now in Finland as well. I had this conversation last week where in a lot of these other countries, they don't have to-go cups. These paper cups don't exist because coffee is meant to be shared. It is meant to be a social experience. It is meant to be, you don't have coffee alone. You don't have coffee on the go because you're wasting it. Like, it's supposed to be a moment to stop what you're doing, whatever work you're doing, and sit with someone else and socialize and have that experience. So yeah, I've traveled a little bit, and in some of my travels trying to find takeaway cups to be able to, to walk down the street with a coffee. People look at you sideways like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be inside, sitting down, focusing on another person and being social and enjoying your coffee with someone else. Yeah. Very interesting that we do it so differently.
Right. Right. But we don't have to.
No, we don't. Yeah. It's just the way we've become wired. These to-go cups are so convenient. And, I love when I'm going shopping, grabbing a latte. It's part of the experience, right? I walk around with my nice, warm, cozy latte and I do Christmas shopping. That's a tradition for me. So not that it's bad. It's just how we're wired and how we associate coffee a little bit differently. And I think we're very susceptible to marketing, and that's really what it is, right? Is it's been marketed to us as more of maybe an individual experience than so much a group social experience. Yeah. So I think that's part of it as well.
For sure. Yeah. I love that point, how coffee is more about connection than it is about your energy boost or anything like that. That's a whole other world for us, right? We came here to talk about coffee, and we're talking about connection and mindfulness. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a really beautiful thing. And I think that when you treat your coffee as an experience and you take your time with it and you sit and you enjoy, or you connect with somebody else over it, the effect that it's going to have on your body is completely different. Because coffee is a stimulant and it perks up our nervous system, and there's great benefits to that, but there's also some drawbacks to that, being that it affects your cardiovascular system. It can cause ups and downs in your blood sugar. Coffee can also be dehydrating, but when we take the time with our coffee and we do things mindfully, then we're not, grabbing our coffee in our cortisol spike, rushing around, not being mindful, doing all kinds of other things. It's like the way that we use our coffee, or the coffee time of the day, can have just as beneficial of an impact on our health as the coffee would otherwise. So that's a really great takeaway. I hope that you're all learning and enjoying this, that, even though with caffeine, the whole caffeine debate, there's positives and there's drawbacks, but it's about how you approach it. Yeah. It's about how you use the coffee in your life that's going to ultimately have a bigger effect on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's a bigger takeaway than maybe we'd hoped. I love when that happens. That's so good. So I want to recap a little bit. We talked about changing the time of day that you have your coffee and how that can be beneficial. We talked about looking for good quality coffee and why that's important, and how when we do have good quality coffee, we don't need to load it up with extras like whipped cream or lots of sugar, for example, because it will taste good on its own. Yeah. And that when we create a good cup of coffee for ourselves, it can be more about connection or about a ritual or taking that moment for ourselves than just about, grabbing something to run.
Yep.
Awesome takeaways today. I want to get to a couple of the questions that I'm seeing pop up here. So, what is your view on bulletproof coffee? Just using organic coffee and adding MCT oil and grass-fed butter. And that is from Cheryl.
Yeah. So I do not serve bulletproof coffee, okay. and I don't drink it myself, but that's just my personal choice. I like my coffee the way it is. I've done a little bit of research on bulletproof coffee, but not enough to be an expert by any means. So I can't speak to the pros or the cons of it at all, because that's not something that I do. I know there's a big movement. A lot of people love it. And you know what, if it makes you feel good and you're feeling that it's benefiting you, do it. Well, so much of it today is just about feeling good about your choices. Right. I unfortunately can't speak to it either way. I'm no expert when it comes to that. But a lot of people swear by it. I say, thumbs up, good for them.
Yeah. And I think that like anything else, there's benefits and there's drawbacks to it. It depends on when you're having the bulletproof coffee. Are you having it early morning during that cortisol spike, or are you using it, say, before you're going into a workout or something like that, where coffee and caffeine can actually be beneficial because it slows your body's use of glycogen stores in your muscles so that you can work out longer. So potentially if you're doing something with endurance, it could be helpful for you in that way. But one of the things that I think gets missed in the whole bulletproof coffee talk is that the guy who started bulletproof coffee, yes, he talks about adding fat to your coffee and how that can enhance the experience that you feel in your body afterwards. But he's really, really strongly advocating for good quality coffee. That is where that discussion begins. So I think that if you're doing the bulletproof coffee, making sure that you're being true to it by using a good quality coffee, and then just being mindful about how you're using that, how that experience is producing in your body, what you're doing afterwards, and watching your stress levels, your heart rate, that kind of thing, making sure that you're within a healthy zone. We have another question. Deb says, I was a barista back in the early 2000s at Second Cup. I remember being taught that a dark oily bean indicated a really good espresso. I don't recall the beans being considered burnt. Is there something new?
It is new. This is really the more progressive style of coffee. What can be called like a third wave style cafe, where dark roasting is considered burnt. And it's not, I don't mean it in any way to insult anyone. If you like your coffee dark roasted, that's cool. Like what you like. I get it. I totally get it. My Nono loves dark coffee. He absolutely loves dark coffee. To each his own. But I'm just trying to describe what Pilot does with their beans and in the it's it's just about the process. If you can take a poor quality coffee and burn it and get the same flavors out of a high quality coffee. So that's why it's been in the last, oh gosh, I don't even know how many years. I'm going to say in the last 10 years or so, I would say that there's really been that movement, that push towards lighter roasted coffees, so that you can really start to see and experience the quality in coffee. Right. So yeah, for an espresso, you still want the darkest roast possible, but not to the point of being burnt. So that dark oily bean that you see either at some of, I'm not even going to say names, but at some of the other major coffee franchises, that is beyond what you would ever find here. For example, our espresso, we use Heritage as our espresso, and it is the darkest roast that Pilot does, but it still doesn't take it to that level where it's a black bean with the oils coming out of it. Because once you take it to that level, it doesn't matter what kind of coffee you're serving or where it's from or the processes, because it's all going to taste the same. So, what Pilot's mission is, and I feel actually like I'm speaking on behalf of Pilot and totally outside of my comfort zone, because I'm not a roaster, and I don't claim to be an expert on roasting, but I can see and experience and taste the difference in these more forward roasting companies, where they stop over roasting it and really put a focus on getting the coffee dark and getting some of those nuances of smoke, but without taking it to the level where you can't tell where the bean is from, or you can't, there's a line. And it's definitely a new way of looking at coffee. Absolutely. 20 years ago, for sure, it was all about just get it dark. I remember I had a little home roaster, and I would read, I had a, roasting for dummies kind of book. And it would be like, you roast it until you see the oils coming out of it. That's when you know it's done, so this is absolutely a new sort of way of roasting coffee. And like I said about Seattle and Portland, them being on the kind of the cutting edge of it. Usually most of the coffee trends start to come out of Seattle or Portland, and a little bit on the West Coast there. Yeah.
That's neat. So there we go. We learned something new about espresso as well. Amanda is asking, how much caffeine is okay in a day? So I don't have exact numbers, but I can post them in the comments afterwards. But what I usually recommend to my clients is that 1 cup of coffee in a day is a good amount. Because if you go beyond that, chances are you're masking processes in your body that actually need attention. So what do I mean by that? Is that if you have your cup of coffee in the morning and then you start to feel sluggish and tired around 2 or 3 o'clock, and you decide, oh, it's time for another coffee, that maybe you're not actually listening to what your body needs. So do you need to take a walk? Do you need some fresh air? Maybe you need to get up and stretch. Maybe we need to get into a conversation about diet and what you've eaten that day, and your digestion and how your body's processing, that kind of thing. So my suggestion would be for you, and for anybody else who's finding themselves drawn to having more than 1 cup of coffee a day on a regular basis. I want to make that clear, that if it's like a treat, or you're, out shopping or something like that, and it's, you're not trying to respond to your regular 3 p.m. crash with a cup of coffee, then that's a totally other thing. But if you find yourself drawn to having more than 1 cup of coffee per day, then maybe you want to start to look at some of those other factors that I mentioned, like your diet, or maybe needing rest, or that your body might be trying to ask for other things or communicate other needs to you that we're so used to just covering up with a second cup of coffee. Using other methods of getting caffeine, so green tea, for example, matcha tends to produce a bit of a stronger effect in terms of caffeine and the way that you feel it in your body. So going to other sources of caffeine that are maybe a little bit less could be a good option if, say, you're wanting something like that in the morning and then you're going to be working out in the afternoon. So you're having your coffee as a boost before your workout. That could be a great way of getting around it.
Coffee is known as well to help you burn fat, not just because it gives you the energy to do more. It actually does something to the fat cells in your body to make it easier to burn. So your body is able to burn fat better after you've had that boost of caffeine.
Okay.
So that's why it is very beneficial to do it before a workout. Something else, excuse me, that we recommend, because we do get a lot of customers coming in and saying, I can't do any more coffee. I've had my limit today. What do you recommend?
Right.
We do offer the real food smoothies. And so they're vegetable based in that they usually have kale and spinach in them, and real food focused. So we've got, whether it's blueberries or pineapple or strawberries, there's no sweetened purees, there's no added sugars into them, and they're a really great option to be able to kind of get that boost, get that little bit of calories into you, but in a healthy way, without the added bad stuff, and so that is something that we certainly recommend, and that a lot of our customers really appreciate, being able to have that really good quality boost. And then we do offer, now this is a whole nother Facebook video for sure, the added proteins, whether it's a whey-based protein or a vegan-based protein. We offer both at our cafes if anybody wanted to add it to their smoothie. Again, I was reluctant to offer it because we're a coffee shop. This is not what we're about. But we did have a lot of customers coming in the afternoon. Maybe it's after a workout saying, I wish you had protein powder, or, we've partnered with 24/7 Fitness as well. And they offer a vegan protein powder as well, that's entirely plant-based. So it was about responding to the customer. So while having coffee is great, and we see some of our customers 3 times a day, by the time it's that third time, they're ready for something different. And that's something that we always push towards them, because it's a nice way to get a little energy boost without having more caffeine.
Right. That's a really great point. And I think that that's something for us to check in with ourselves about our habits, is that if we're finding later in the day, or maybe we've already had our coffee for the day and we're looking for something else, that maybe it's just out of habit that we're reaching for another cup of coffee, but really you might need a smoothie or a nutrient boost, or maybe even just a glass of water or something like that to give your body what it's actually asking for. Because having too much coffee or caffeine in whatever form it's coming in is it can be dehydrating. So you might not recognize that your body actually is needing water. So maybe that's something for us to check in with ourselves is, do I need water? Do I need coffee? Do I need nutrients? Maybe I need some fresh air, or to take a little bit of a break. So lots of good insight coming here. And
I see there's a question about decaf.
So let's talk quickly about decaf. This will be our final point. So
I guess the short of it is, no, you don't get a lot of those benefits that we spoke about earlier come from the caffeine that's in coffee, and the fact that the caffeine that's in coffee is a very natural caffeine. And so, if you were to be drinking decaf instead of caffeinated coffee, you wouldn't experience the majority of the health benefits. So it's a different ballgame entirely. And I understand when you're trying to cut back on caffeine, that getting a decaf is the way to go if you're still really wanting that coffee. But the benefits aren't there.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I have a question though about the antioxidants.
Yes, you would still get the antioxidants, and you would still get the nutrients in the coffee, as long as it's a Swiss water processed.
Okay.
Because there is other ways of creating a decaf coffee that aren't so good for you.
Right.
But in any quality cafe, their decaf would be Swiss water processed.
Right.
So it's a much healthier way of creating a decaf coffee. So you get to retain those antioxidants and nutrients. Yes.
Good. As opposed to having added chemicals, which is something that none of us wants in our coffee.
Exactly.
So again, it goes back to quality. That's something that I'm hearing in this conversation over and over again, is that choosing good quality coffee really makes a difference.
Yeah.
Do you sell ground coffee or beans for people to make coffee at home? Absolutely.
We have whole bean coffee in our shops. And something else that we didn't actually speak on is freshness, because that's a big factor for us. We get our beans shipped up to Sudbury the day after they're roasted.
Wow.
And we will sell them or use them for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then that's it.
Right.
Then they are expired to us, and they are of no use, because freshness is, you can taste it. You can taste when your coffee is fresh or when it's not. And there is a difference as well in the caffeine level that's in a freshly roasted coffee versus an older stale coffee. So to get the maximum amount of benefits from your coffee, you want to be using a fresh coffee. Right. So yeah, we offer whole beans, and then we can grind them for you depending on what way you're using to brew your coffee, whether it's a French press, whether it's a percolator. There's, all different grind sizes. So you just come on in, and if you don't have a grinder at home, you can just tell us how you're going to be brewing your coffee, and we'll grind it for you.
That's nice. Good. Yep. So yeah, great points here. So we talked about freshness, we talked about quality, we talked about how coffee should taste good when it's black, and how having coffee as a healthy part of our diet means that we're not adding tons of things to it, that sometimes it's the things that we're adding to the coffee, or the time that we're drinking the coffee, or the way that we're drinking our coffee, that can actually have those health drawbacks. So lots of great information here. I want to thank everybody who watched this live. Thank you for your questions and for contributing to the conversation. And also a big thank you to Tania.
Thank you. Thanks to you. This has been fantastic.
Great. Yeah, I know I'm leaving here with a much deeper appreciation for coffee. And my favorite point by far was that having coffee as a means of connection, that can bring people together. So I come from a food background, as you all well know, and that's one of the things that I love the most about food, and that when you're connecting over something, it makes it that much better for you.
Absolutely. And that's why we have designed our 2 cafes to have a comfortable seating space so that people can come inside and enjoy your coffee together and have that social experience and have a connection. And we feel that it's about more than just the coffee.
That's great. I love it. Thank you so much, Tania. And thanks everyone for watching. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to add your comments or questions into the feed, and we will get back to you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.